listened to a teaching by Larry Williams, and he mentioned he had a workshop that he did in person, and he called it the Inner Circle Workshop. So I was like, that's really cool, man. Inner circle, that really resonates with me. Like, I want to be on the inner circle, And then when I actually got in the inner circle and learned how these really, these markets really book, it became obvious that, I'm inner circle trading now. So that was the birth of ICT.
Hey everybody, welcome to a new episode. Before we get started, make sure you show a little love. If you're on YouTube, subscribe to the channel and hit the thumbs up button. If you're on Apple Podcasts, make sure you leave us a review. Any other platform that you're on, whatever the love looks like, show a little, and then let's get started.
Mr. ICT, how are you?
Doing well, sir. How are you?
Doing really well. It's very nice to see you for the first time, and it's very nice to have you on. I know that we're just jumping on, but as a way of introduction, I'll just say I'm very happy that you're here, and thanks for making the time.
You're very welcome. This is actually the first time that I've ever done a kind of like a podcast where you could actually see me.
Okay.
So you're the first.
Very good. Good to know. And we'll break the internet for the first time you've come on, then turned on your camera. As we're jumping into things, we are in 2023, getting ready to start or kick off, should I say, the end of January here. How has 2023 been for you so far?
I don't really start trading live again until the first Tuesday of February, but I've been active with the community. I've been teaching on the channel. I've been calling moves on Twitter daily. So I'll leave the viewers to check on that themselves, see how well.
Very good. Outside of trading, everything going well for, I guess, just the rest, health, family, everything else?
I'm blessed. I'm absolutely blessed. We moved into a new home. This is my trading office at the moment, but it's still unpacking. So,
brand new.
All my screens are behind this laptop, and everything over here is unfinished still. So I have a lot of things to basically unpack still.
Oh, very interesting. Okay, then it's a exciting time to be ICT, getting into a new space. That's always nice. Are you moving into the same state, or have you made like a large move?
Same state. In fact, it's basically like 15, 20 minutes away from the house I still own.
Oh, okay. So just down the road then.
Yeah.
Very cool. I'll tell you, if it's okay, I know we're in the middle of a day. Potentially you're not trading live, but I know you have other things to do. And so if we could jump into the interview part, because I really would like to take very good advantage of the time that we have together. Sure. And by way of maybe introduction, I think I don't want to spend too much time going over just your story, because I think it's been told a lot, but for people listening to this conversation, and even for me to make sure I have it straight, maybe I can go over a few points, and then we can just spend a few minutes talking about the beginning years of your trading journey, because I think you're very fascinating, and I would like to dive into that just a little bit. Okay. Very good. I'll assume. Okay. Starting off in your trading, this was for you in the early 90s is when you got started. You were introduced to trading, or at least what really sparked it for you, from what I understand, was an online advertising, or an in-magazine advertising. And if you could talk a little bit about what that was like, specifically maybe before you saw that advertisement, were you intrigued by markets, or before that moment was the idea of being involved as a trader not even on the radar?
As a child, I grew up as a teenager with an uncle that actually got started trading commodities. And he had a bit of luck with the sugar market. And when I was 13, the summer of the year I was 13 going into 14 years old, every Sunday, our family would get together and he would come over and say, look, Michael, when you get out of school, get yourself a degree, get a good job, and start trading futures and options. The richest people in the world trade futures and options. And of course, as a typical 13-year-old, 14-year-old, it was going in one ear after the other. I really wasn't intrigued at all by it, but it was being constantly hammered every Sunday from that age on. And I went to work for a Jewish family in Owings Mills, and I was selling vending machines and candy machines. And I was fascinated with the cash aspect of that business. And I was like, I want to be an entrepreneur. And one of the days I came home from doing my route, I was waiting for my then boss to count all the revenue I had collected from the machines. And he had an entrepreneur magazine on his desk. And I was so embarrassed to ask him if I could look at it. And finally, I just worked up the courage saying, Glenn, can I look at this? You can have it. So I took it home, and I've said this story a lot, but I'll give you a real brief rendition of it. At the back of the magazine, it had a small little classified ad, said real money, real people. And it gave like a couple things like $800 to $32,000 in 6 months, $1,500 into $9,000 and something. I don't have the numbers exactly, but it was something to that effect. Call this 1-800 number and get your details. So I did, and it turned out to be Ken Roberts' commodity course. And it was looking back, it was a poorly written introduction to trading that I bought hook, line, and sinker. And I immediately went with one of the brokers that he recommended, which was Fox Investments. And my first soiree in it, I lost 50% of my money on the very first trade, trading orange juice option. So that was my introduction to trading. And I knew that because I was incorrect and I lost 50% of my money overnight, someone took my money. So that somebody, I set out to be that person. So it was a motivational thing. It was depressing at first, but it turned into a fevered pursuit to become that other person on the other side of the trade.
Right on. Very good. Now, when you began trading, this was early mid-90s, from what I understand. Today, it's stupid easy to set up an account. If you want to begin trading and you choose to go down that road, you could start trading live the day you decide that you want to be a trader. What was it like in early 90s to try and set up an account and to trade? Or was it difficult to get a charting package? Was it difficult to get live data? Was this like a real pain point, or what was the process like?
Well, back then it felt like cutting edge because we were coming up with internet at the time. Internet, America Online was the thing. And I used a charting package called Metastock, which it wasn't the top tier thing. TradeStation was, and Supercharts was at the time. And I had access to them as well, but I preferred Metastock. And the way I had to get the data was, it was a end of day download. So the only thing live I had was a quote track, which was like for some of you newer folks listening, it won't make any sense to you, but it was like a small little handheld transistor radio with an extendable antenna. And it would have real-time quotes going across the screen for all the markets I was subscribed to. Wow. And I would have that duct taped to my windshield of my truck. And I'm doing my route, watching this thing and literally trading with payphones. So it took 3-4 weeks to get your account opened up, sometimes with some of these brokers, because you had to verify the whole business. Everything was through mail. And then when you called your orders in, it wasn't like we have a click of a button and we can get in an order and get out. Like, you have to call, wait for them to answer the phone, get the desk that you're on, then wait for them to confirm that your account is you're the person that owns the account, and then give the order to them. Then they read the order back to you. The whole time the market's trading, the whole time the market's fluctuating. So it's a totally different atmosphere for traders today that have come from that era.
Yeah. Wildly different. It's a good time to be a trader. What a difference it was not that long ago. But we are blessed, I guess, to be dealing with what we have now. Okay, yes. So one of the things that I found really fascinating about you is early on, you were getting involved in markets when there was a primary bull run going on, and you went on a pretty substantial 9-month winning streak, and of just being profitable during a time that I think you would attribute it to good luck, where the market was running up, you were taking longs, and it was maybe a little bit difficult to even lose money. And I would be interested if you could talk a little bit about that experience, because I think that everybody in their trading journey gets introduced at some point to easy money or some substantial wins kind of early on. Right. And a lot of times this can be the worst thing that could happen, because it really clouds the line between how easy it is to make money as a trader, which, to be fair, it is. You push a button, it's going to go up or down, and confusing that for being easy and messing up how difficult it is to do that consistently. And if I look at my own experience, there were certain trades that I was involved with, the same thing, similar to your story of just good luck, but they gave me a false idea. But having a 9-month run is astounding. And so if you could kind of talk about what that was like as an early trader and how that went on for so long, or if you quit your job in between, or if how you handled that situation.
Well, most of the trades I took were based on buying and going long. And I didn't understand short selling at all. In fact, it scared me to death because I attributed that any market would be going down, that's a loss. And
sure.
knowing what I sound like and what I teach today, and knowing where I came from, there is a total amazing divide from what I thought I knew back then and what I understand about myself and the market today. So when I was looking at markets in 1992 is when I first started, and one trade, one transaction in 1992, that's all there was. I was in and out and done because that one option trade. And I went in my mind thinking, I'm going to go into the books and learn how to do this. And I like the idea of using an hourly chart and a stochastics overbought. And I looked for markets that had a upsloping 50-day moving average. So it was really simple. It was really simplistic. And anything that's moving up and it's strongly moving up, where it's almost like I don't want to say guaranteed because nothing in trading is guaranteed, but the fact that I was in markets that were already predisposed to go up, I was attributing my accuracy, if you want to call it that, because I don't like to call it accuracy now because it was just blind luck.
Okay.
That buying of an oversold condition with a bullish divergence and a stochastics on an hourly chart, and then buying the market on a stop. So I would buy the market when it was moving in my favor. So many times it had already moved, high grade copper, wheat, soybeans. They were moving sometimes 10 cents before the move actually got me in. Today, I would never trade like that. I would never trade that way. In fact, I like to be buying when the market's dropping against me. I want to see the opposing direction to my trade direction in terms of profit. Early on, I listened to folks like Larry Williams, who is legendary. He taught in his courses that buying strength was the way to go. And because I was a fanboy, and at heart I still am, I adopted that mindset. And unfortunately, it tricked me into thinking that my early consistency was skill. And then it turned around on me. And every time I got into another trade, it was just no, deny. And it was going down. And because I was fearful of short selling or even understanding, I didn't even want to delve into the topic because I felt like the stock market is predisposed to go up. Everybody's told to put their money in their 401k. Everyone buys. So why should I even be worrying about being a short seller? Just do one trick pony approaches to trading and simplify it for myself. But unfortunately, it closed my mind to understanding where the real risks were, because if you don't understand where the markets are likely to go into a correction or a sell market, bearish market, you're not really equipped to be trading. You're not really in a position to be incurring risk. And I found that out the hard way.
Sure. During that time, were you able to make withdrawals and actually pocket money, or were you rolling everything over, and then did you end up just actually losing everything for your first night, or for that 9-month period?
I ran up, and then all of a sudden losing trade, and then the inevitable happened. I think I know I'm going to do it better. I'm going to do more leverage. I'm not going to use a stop loss this time. And the 9 months just went gone.
Yeah.
So it was nothing. I ran up 9 months and took it home. I had the experience. It was exhilarating, but I wasn't able to take it home and do anything, because I was, in my mind, I'm trying to get to 1 million, because if I could get to 1 million, I can quit my job, when I didn't need to do that. What I needed to do was just stick to my original plan, was find one good setup per week, not I'm going to go on every single day, because now it looks like everything goes up every day. And it wasn't like that at all. It turned around like that on me.
Yeah. Fascinating time to begin your trading journey in such a long environment of the same thing. And I imagine that was just a shell shock when that environment went away, making the adjustments and everything else. So it's also a fascinating thing to me. On your early years of posting, you got approached by a government agency, and they, from what I understand, you were giving out financial advice without a license, and things were probably a little bit different back then as well. Could you just speak briefly about that and kind of like what happened? Did you actually get in trouble, or maybe how long it was before you felt comfortable posting again so that you didn't bring on more heat your way?
It was the Commodity Futures Trading Commission.
Yeah.
It was during the time of the mid-90s. I had a following that was growing on America Online, and I was posting things about the marketplace, and I was calling market moves, and I did not understand the legalities of what it was I was doing. I didn't have any risk disclaimers. That's where I was wrong.
Okay.
I didn't talk about how, you could lose more money than you have. So one day, I was renting a room from my aunt and uncle, who I was residing with at the time, when I was coming up. And I got a knock on the door, and well-dressed young man says, I'm looking for Michael Huddleston. I said, I'm him. Boom, you've been served, hands me an envelope, and runs back to his car. I'm like, what is this? And it said Washington, D.C., and the whole Commodity Futures Trading Commission. And it was more or less them saying, you got to give us all of your emails, all of your laptop, everything you got to present it to us, and you got to come out here and see us. And as fate would have it, my laptop actually died the day before. So I had nothing to provide for them. And I ended up calling, and they just basically were saying, look, what you're doing, you can't do it. You're not even providing risk disclaimers or nothing. I said, okay, well, I'm going to make this real easy for you. I'm just going to stop, because I don't know what I'm doing in terms of this. Because I thought it was freedom of speech. We don't have freedom of speech in this. This is not freedom of speech. So I had to more or less just stop doing what I was doing. But the passion in me, like I wanted to teach, like I wanted to share it. I wanted to help other people, because I knew how passionate I was when I was learning how to do it. So I think it was maybe, I don't know, a year and a half. I slowly crept back on the scene, but I was constant disclaimers, It was obnoxious, all the disclaimers I had. But they subpoenaed AOL and anybody that ever instant messaged me and everything. But nobody lost any money to have a damaging, thing to me. So everything that I called, much like they've been seeing this year, it's pretty much spot on. And I'm thankful for that. But yeah, that was a scary situation, because they threaten you with 5 years in prison and a $500,000 fine, and but I wasn't harming anybody. But what I was doing was, and this is how I look at it, I was talking about something before it happened, and it happened. And my observance of things like that, if you're over the target, you're not supposed to be over the target this many times, and boundaries and barriers will be put up. And that's how I interpreted it. Today, you might not feel that, because everybody feels like they have an open market where they just go out there and click a button and there it is. But most of the time, retail traders are not consistent. They're not able to find consistency. And when someone stands out from the crowd and it's obvious, they don't get the privilege to be able to stay anonymous. They will be reached out and touched. And I had that from the federal government, and I have, learned a lesson from that. I don't want to have no problem. That's why I've always talked openly from a demo account. And a lot of people have an issue with that, but you're basically trading a demo account with funded accounts. Like you're doing that anyway. So if you can't read price action, whether it be through the medium of a demo that's using live data, or if you're trading with a live account. It matters not. If the logic is utilized, the same approach is going to be used whether you trade with a live account or not. I enjoy the privilege to be a teacher and the safety of using it through the medium of a demo account. So that way, invariably, someone's going to listen to what I'm going to say. And if you just go look at Twitter. I tell them all the time, don't follow what I'm telling you to do. And they're posting, I made this much money off of what you said. Great. Thank you, Dad. And that type of stuff is not, I don't want that. But if you have someone that's going to follow you and not do all the rules, not have all the discipline that's required, wait around, not take the entry like it should be, wait for what they're going to think is confirmation. Then they're going to chase the market. Then they're not going to use the same stop loss that I would have used, because now it's a larger incurred risk if they get stopped out. They're going to use a tighter stop loss, and they're going to get stopped out, and they're going to have a realized loss. So who are they going to blame? They're going to blame me. So I preach and promote the idea of teaching through a demo, and I understand and I accept the fact that some people are not going to find that helpful, but there's a real reason, and I'm trying to prevent that from reoccurring.
Yeah, very fascinating experience. And I can imagine how scary that must have been, especially young, faced with those kind of, just the government in general, but especially those kind of consequences. So it's also fascinating just looking at life, how one thing going differently just would have changed everything. If that would have went a little bit differently for you and you would have spent 5 years in jail, like what a different life out of that one seemingly small thing. Very, very interesting. Now, I've heard you say before, and I would agree that you've just had a very fascinating, and even to that point, kind of a guided path. And I heard you say this before, that it's incredible how everything in your life has lined up. Do you attribute that to potentially luck, or something along the line of you manifested it? Do you believe that it was a God or the God that has guided your life? Do you have thoughts on this?
This is another controversial subject matter that I have no shame in telling you. And I understand that some of your viewers, and I'm not sure how you stand with this as well, but I have a lot of students all around the world that come from different walks of life. Some of them are faith-based, some of them are Muslim, some of them are Jewish, some of them are atheists. I am of the opinion that faith in a creator is the number one reason why I am able to do what I can do. Because I worked very, very hard to try to figure this stuff out. And I had several experiences that would be otherwise referred to as out of this world type thing. And it's very spiritual. I've been trying to work up the courage to present it publicly. I have done it to my private mentorship group, and unfortunately it has been leaked and people have used it to troll me and such. But I am of a very strong opinion that there is a God. I believe that Jesus Christ was and is that God. And it's not my point to preach to anybody, but if I'm asked, then I have to be ready to give that testimony, and that's what I'm doing here. Have I ever heard the voice of God? Yes, I have. I have had things shown to me. I've had instructions given to me where my life was preserved because I listened to that very thing at the very moment. I've had instruction given to me, and every time I listen to it, I've been very thankful and blessed for it. When I haven't listened to it, it caused me unnecessary pain and struggle. So I am not your typical, I'm kind of like the Peter of the Gospels. Sometimes I have foot and mouth disease. I have my mouth up and I put my foot in it. So I'm not a really good poster boy for Christianity. And I don't believe that we have to go to a church to do that. I think it's necessary for some people, but I have a relationship with Christ. I am a sinner. I cuss. I lose my temper sometimes because I'm chemically imbalanced. And I don't make apologies for that because I can't change those things. And I try to do things as best as I can. But to answer your question in short, yes, I do believe I had an experience that helped direct me in my path and preserve me from going in a direction that two gentlemen would rather me had gone.
Yeah, very well said. And thank you for opening up on that. I'll tell you, there's been, with just questions that I've asked already, there's probably been like 3 or 4 topics that it's very hard for me just to move on after you reply. But for the sake of the first time we've ever talked, I think, and trying to be respectful of not prying too much into your personal life, I appreciate what you have shared, and it's fascinating to hear. So moving on, I think that, again, this is probably a lot of just introduction about you, and it's been nice to get to know you, and I'm sure people will appreciate this conversation. I think that when it comes to your actual trading, this is something that is, you have put so much out there in terms of series that are just readily available on your channel. You've been posting for a very long time on YouTube. You have a massive YouTube following. And I think even in other interviews, you've spoken in depth about your style. I don't think there's any reason to maybe beat that up or to use our time to go over that, because I think it's very available if people are interested at all. Could you maybe, though, just give like an elevator pitch of how you would say your style is or your approach to trading, and then people that would like to resonate with that, who maybe for some reason have lived under a rock and don't know who you are, they can be directed to your YouTube channel where you have a lot of resources.
If you have tried using everything that's in books, there's a lot of educators out there that are well-meaning. They may be even profitable. And you may have tried those approaches to trading, and you just feel like there's a disconnect. You can't make it work, or it's inconsistent. And it doesn't really deliver the storyline as to why price does what we see price do on a day-by-day basis. And that's largely attributed to how markets are booked and delivered algorithmically. So what I try to communicate to my listeners, and unfortunately it comes by way of a very drawn out, dry discussion, which is what coding and algorithmic theory is. Unfortunately, there's no way for me to sugarcoat it. I guess if I was showing Lamborghinis and the fast track and then splicing in like 10 minutes of the things I talk about, it would be more palatable for most folks. But to me, I've never been a supporter of that approach. I like the idea of knowing why I'm doing something in the marketplace. Why should the price go up? Why shouldn't price go down? Why should the market not hit your stop loss? See, with over 2,000 books in my library, I have literally probably read everything that you could ever come across in terms of technical analysis, approaches, anything in trading. I've already tried all that stuff. And what I've done is try to communicate in a way where I can take you and anyone else into the marketplace and show how the algorithm itself is going to deliver price. And it's a large body of viewers and opponents to what it is I talk about in trading. They'll say there is no algorithm. There is no algorithm. And it's important for someone to really take a look at what I'm presenting, because when you do that, it's very, very difficult to argue how buying and selling pressure agrees with the very levels that I teach that either holds price at bay or it reaches to it right to the tick. And my only challenge to the listeners has always been, don't believe me because I said it. Go in, look for the things that I'm teaching and see if it doesn't manifest itself in the charts, because it does every single day. And I've done this now for 26 years, and I've done one-on-one teachings, I've done group teachings, now I've done mentorships, and now I'm doing it publicly. And the folks that have arm wrestled the idea of the markets being algorithmic or not, I think everyone understands that there are algorithms in the marketplace trading.
Sure.
But the way that markets are booked and delivers price has nothing to do with buying and selling pressure. The volume is looked at in a way where it's a red herring. The only thing volume is useful in terms of my understanding about price is I want a lot more volume coming in because they're going to use that volume to take them and place them where they want in the marketplace. My question to you is this. How many contracts would you, Aaron, expect it to require for the S&P to move 10 handles?
10 handles?
How many contracts?
Oh, I would guess thousands.
Okay.
I wouldn't have an accurate number for this.
How about 5 handles? How many would it take?
Half of the thousands that it would take to go 10.
Okay. When we have our session end at 5 o'clock and it resumes at 6 o'clock and we have our gap, how many contracts does it take to have that first print right at 6 o'clock? When the first trade hits the market and we see the opening price, how many contracts did it take to make that?
1, yeah.
So when you take a step back and you say, okay, what happens when we have these big sudden movements when FOMC comes out or CPI or any market driver that comes out? That was the big red flag to me that, hey, I was thinking I had to see a lot of volume to keep seeing a trend continue when that's not necessarily the right way of looking at it. You need to see where the market will likely go to. So in my presentations, I teach approach to attacking liquidity, just like the algorithm is allowing people with the idea that I'm implementing and teaching. They go in and they cannibalize the marketplace. They don't go in looking for patterns to be profitable. They're looking for where the orders are. Above old highs, there's buy stops. Below old lows, there's sell stops. Where is it most likely, and obviously, where's it reaching for? On a higher time frame chart, if you can peg that, and it's pretty easy, I've taught that many times in many of the series I put on my YouTube channel. If you trade with that mindset and just simply look for how the market continuously supports itself, every time a down close candle forms and it's likely to go up to a buy side liquidity pool, those down close candles will act just like you are expecting your support resistance to offer support to the marketplace. And when it creates these little gaps, I call it a fair value gap, it comes down and goes into that, you can reasonably expect the algorithm to start repricing and spooling higher and reach to that liquidity pool over the course of a day or over the course of the session. And it takes a couple months just to spend time studying it, and you will quickly believe that there is absolutely an algorithm that's controlling price to the tick. And it's fascinating. It's a wonderful sort. Even if you don't want to subscribe to the idea entirely, if you just go in and just approach price action study with these ideas in mind, you will see clearly that there's much more than trend lines and harmonic patterns and things in LE wave. All that stuff, I believe, and I leave it to the viewer to make the final determination on whether this is true for them or not. I believe they're distractions. And that's what I like about, I like about you as a YouTuber, because you have something that you implement. You have something that you teach, and your community doesn't go out like I'm accused of many times. I'm superior and everybody else is substandard. I like your approach because you have a way that is charming. It's not adversarial. That's the reason why I'm even talking to you, because there's a lot of people that have asked for this, and I won't give it to them. But I think that even though I don't subscribe to the way you trade or even interpret price action, I believe that your personality, your approach to doing what it is that you do is a breath of fresh air, because it's exactly what I try every time I go out there and try to do the live sessions or whatever. I try to have a demeanor like yours, but I can't stay balanced long enough. And my experience, my distaste for what goes on in this industry revs me up. And I'll say things because I've seen something that I've fallen victim to. And when I teach in the way I teach in my series, I'm actually talking to my children. They're like little, like My Life, Michael Keaton movie. I'm recording things so that way, if anything ever happens to me, they hear it from me. It's not like writing a book and they can say, here, Dad wrote this book. They can hear me talking to them. They can hear it. And I think that if anyone goes to my channel and just puts down all their preconceived notions about what they believe about price action, what they do, what they like about me, what they heard about me, just put that aside for a moment. Go in and try to debunk what I said. Treat that as a challenge. Go in there and see if the things that I'm talking about aren't in fact the very things that's going on. And it's going to be 180 degrees diametrically opposed to everything you read in books. You look at volume, you look at price action patterns, you look at trend lines and moving average crossovers. All those things, they may be factors that you can identify when the moves are occurring or after they occurred. But that was not the catalyst that causes the price to move and reprice to where it's going to go. And my challenge to the viewers are always this. If I was using something other than the things I'm talking about, what is it? And why can't it be replicated somewhere else using retail logic? And I've used that as a marketing pitch. So I've never advertised, I've never done anything, but all of my growth is organic, and I'm blessed. I'm so thankful that so many people find what it is I do engaging and helpful. But sometimes I have been guilty of being a little bit of abrasive to other approaches. And sometimes I've done it to just get the crowd riled up, because that will get them talking. And that's how I've used that organic growth, where I don't have to advertise. I get people talking and they get offended. They come over to my group and they say, well, my method does this and my method does that. The fact that they're talking gets the conversation started. And that's how I've grown. So I created a polarizing approach to teaching. I've maintained a polarizing persona, and it allows me to filter out the people that really want to learn. Because if they're showing up every day and they're putting their work in and they're tweeting to me, or they're putting videos up using the things I've taught, they're convinced. And that's who I'm talking to. That's my audience. I'm not really talking to the folks out there that don't like me or think that what I'm talking about is contrived. That's fine. I'm using them to help grow my channel, but I'm not affected by any of them. And so I think that in one sentence, I teach how traders can utilize the idea of liquidity and how the markets really book price without any retail logic.
You said so much that I wanted to comment on there, and I think I'll end it with that little blurb that you gave, because I think that was very succinct and the best you could put that into a sentence, because for all the reasons you said. But encourage everybody as well, and we'll link it obviously, but to go visit your YouTube channel where you have a lot. Before I move on, because you just started to kind of introduce the idea of your position in the marketplace and really the brand that is ICT. Can I ask, because it's one of the most interesting things, many of the interesting things about you, what was the birth of inner circle trading? What was the birth of ICT?
The brand name, or me being ICT himself?
I think the branding, that persona that you have, what has become an insane brand, and such a recognizable logo and 3 letters. What was the birth of that?
I was at a local park here in Maryland. It's Gunpowder State Park. I used to go there every weekend. I would take headphones, a hammock, and I would hang it between two trees right by the ledge of the water. And I would sit there and either listen to an audiobook or I would listen to, back then it was all cassette tapes, by the way. But I would be listening to something that had nothing really to do with trading, and I would try to calm myself because I had anxiety a lot. And I listened to a teaching by Larry Williams, and he mentioned he had a workshop that he did in person, and he called it the Inner Circle Workshop. So I was like, that's really cool, man. Inner circle, that really resonates with me. Like, I want to be on the inner circle, you know? And then when I actually got in the inner circle and learned how these really, you know, these markets really book, it became obvious that, you know, I'm inner circle trader now. So that was the birth of ICT.
Very interesting. Along the way, I feel that you have a lot of very unique phrases and concepts that you've coined that have become extremely popular. Do you have any rough estimate how many different concepts you've coined and developed over the years?
I'm not quite sure. I thought I knew what you were saying, but give me an example of one of those. That way I know what you're asking.
So in my opinion, and maybe I'm even wrong about this, but things like fair value gap would be something that you created.
Yes.
And I think that there's a litany of things that people just use. And I think before I was even introduced to you, have heard so many people talk about that I didn't even know came from you, but they did. Mm-hmm. Is it like you have like 5 core ideas, or is it like 30 different things that you've coined over the years that people just took?
I have things that my family know I've created and authored and codified, but I guess maybe around 20 or so that I think the public is at least heard me mention at least once or twice. But I got about 80 specific things that the algorithm will do that I'm not going to divulge all that stuff publicly, but I believe that if a trader just picks up on one of those subtle nuances in price action, like the fair value gap, that could be your entire core model. And you don't need to do anything but that. Or you could do a breaker, which is a simple, after a stop run, it returns back to a specific candle, not a range or a zone, but a very specific candle. And then you use the same logic I mentioned earlier, where you have to know where the market's likely to go. Where's the pool of liquidity it's going to go to? If it's not going to go to liquidity, it's going to go to a premium imbalance, which would be equivalent to like a fair value gap. It sounds very complicated because what complicates it is the language. Because I wish there was some book, because I've told my wife, my kids many times, I was like, there's a lot of times I'm thankful that I started teaching, but there's a lot of times I wish I would have never started, because even when I think I'm close to ending it and I'm satisfied for what I brought to the community, a new wave of people come and they show their excitement for wanting to learn, and that's infectious to me. Like I want to cater to that. So it's like I don't see me stopping until I'm dead. Okay, but I know for certain I'm not going to release everything, because the things that I'm holding back, I just don't want to do that. But the things I've taught, it's interesting to see how folks have ran with it, and it's nothing short of a phenomenon that I'm impressed by it myself.
For sure. Do you have an idea of approximately how many people have ripped off your trainings?
A lot. I know there is a large institution out there that was a multi-level marketing company that had lots of their mentors and teachers that were promoting it, and they would teach verbatim whatever I taught, and they would keep the idea that it came from me away from them. So yeah, I could sit here and name drop a lot of people, but I get it. Okay. I get what they do. I get what they're doing. And all I'm asking is, listen, you asked earlier in the conversation in the interview, you said, was there a turning point? Was it faith-based? The fact that I am able to have this information, that it was entrusted to me, I only ask for people to credit me because when they hear me say where I got it from, it releases all the credit to me. Because without Christ, I would have never been able to have this. And that's the reality. Because the way my life was laid out and the places I ended up, the people I met, the circumstances that I was kept from falling victim to, that's Christ's hand. Like there's no way about any other way. Like I didn't earn this. I worked very hard to try to figure this stuff out. And it wouldn't ever work. It was like a barrier, like, no, you can get so far and it's no. So I understand that, in an industry like this, everybody rips off stuff all the time. And it happens all the time. And I don't want the glory. I don't want the fame. I don't want the lift me up on a pedestal type thing. That's why I don't like being called the king or the goat. I can't stand that. I cannot stand that. That's pride. I'm not that type of person. I'm not wired that way. At 20 years old on a Miracle Online, I was that guy. I wanted all that stuff, but I don't want that now. But if I could get folks to just give the respect that it's just the right thing. Because when they hear me say where I got it from, I'm putting down all of the chance for me to receive praise. I don't want that. I'm just the vessel. I'm the instrument that is a conduit for other people to enjoy what it is that's been gifted to me. That's all I'm asking for. I don't want to be looked up as a legend and all that stuff. If I help other people, wonderful. If you sell stuff that has my information in it, just say, hey, I was inspired by ICT. That's it. That's all I'm asking. Because if they're going to look into me, they're going to say, oh, this guy teaches for free. Oh, and he says, he honors and gives all the glory to Christ. And that's all I want. It's the only reason why I want it to be that way.
Recently, have you been through a bit of rebranding? I noticed specifically like on your YouTube channel, it's your thumbnail is different. Was this something calculated or was it just a decision?
I have a follower on Twitter, and forgive me, I don't right now put on the spot. I don't know what his handle is to be able to do whatever, but he actually created it, and he took a picture that I posted of myself on my Twitter feed. He took it and did some kind of like overlays and such, which I thought was really cool looking, and it had my own ICT logo in it. I said, wow, I'm gonna just use that. That's awesome. But the logo itself, the infinite dynamic Fibonacci circles that everybody knows my logo from, it's everywhere now. Like it's everywhere. And a lot of people use it for their own avatar on social media. Some of them will impersonate me. So this way it's like, you know what, I'm gonna start putting my face with this now instead of just some abstract Fibonacci sequence of circles on a logo. So it wasn't that I was really trying so much to rebrand, but I wanted to come away from the fun I had with all the people that were taking my course material and rebranding it, because I would call myself the mentor of mentors. And it was my way of like thumb in the eye all the folks that won't give me the credit for it, but they eventually were exposed when I brought all my material public. But yeah, that's pretty much all I gotta say about it.
So you briefly touched on just that, I'll say, iconic ICT logo that is very recognizable, probably up there with like a popular brand.
Pepsi.
What was how did you come up with that as your logo? Did you create it? Did somebody create it? Did you pay to have it created? What was the birth of, and maybe why specifically that sequence of Fibonacci circles?
There is a certain set of numbers in that logo that is characteristic to a lot of things I do in my own personal algorithm. And because of that sequence and those numbers being what they are, it's like the science behind how I interpret price runs. And it's also the science behind the aspect of time. So when I teach and I trade with elements of time and price, time being the first factor before I even consider taking a trade, because there's certain times the algorithm is going to do specific things. And unless I know what that time is, and I'm not going to be in front of the charts at that moment, then there's no trade. Price itself will behave a certain way at that specific time. And the numbers that is used for these price runs algorithmically are actually in that logo.
Very fascinating. I think I am the mentor to your mentor was brilliant, and that's very recognizable to you. Also, Ghost in the Machine.
Yes.
What does Ghost in the Machine mean to you?
When you spend time with me, and the things that I talk about and codified is the algorithmic theory that most people are utilizing today and making real money with it, they will see my fingerprints all over everything that they're implementing in their trading. When price is delivering a specific way, you're going to think about what it is that you learn from me if you've been mentored by me. A casual reader or viewer of the concepts that I put on the YouTube channel, they're not going to have this experience. But the folks that are really pouring themselves in, when they're watching price and it behaves exactly as I outlined, exactly like it's to the tick, exactly what they were trained to expect and see, they're going to hear in their head the things that I said at that moment about that very thing and that concept. So I'm haunting their whole trade setup. I'm in there. I'm not in the room with them, but because of their memory of what they were trained and expect in the lecturing and the long jawboning sessions that I give, they're going to hear my voice in their thoughts about what it is they're watching. So I'm the ghost in the machine. The machine is this, your head, your brain. So I'm the ghost that's haunting every trader that's been infected by this information I've given out. They're utilizing that. So I'm the ghost in the machine.
I love that. When you started putting out ICT and maybe the logo and incrementing with the branding, maybe even in the early years, was there ever, like, was this always the goal did you have a vision that this was something you were going to take to the world? This was something that you wanted to have a true like market share of attention in this space? Or the fact that this is spread and your name and your method has been so widely copied and used, and the logo is so predominant everywhere, was this at some level shocking to you, or was this kind of always your plan?
I'm pouring myself out this year in 2023, and my intentions are to be done this year. So I don't want to have a long run of increasing, I guess, celebrity. I don't want to be a celebrity. I have a lot of folks that reach out to me on a daily basis that want me to do more than I'm already doing, build partnerships and go on lecture series and circuits and do all kinds of things, and prop funds wanting me to train their individuals, do those types of things one-on-one. And I never really wanted to go out and become this really big thing. I've always teased and trolled when I was on baby pips. I said, look, when I start really teaching, it's going to really blow up. I knew once I showed what I'm showing now, that if you want to trade and you see what I do and what my students are able to do, you want to trade just like that. You want to trade just like that. You're not distracted by indicators. You're not distracted by anything. But I am very intimidated by the number of people that follow me. Like when I do a Twitter space and I'm talking live, that's an unfiltered ICT. And you'll see and hear the bipolarism in me that will swing one way or the other. And I've always tried to filter that out in my teachings because they're there. And I have to edit it out because I don't want to come across, imbalanced, right? So, but in the Twitter, it seems to be they like that part of me because it makes me human. Obviously, they can see I'm a real person. I'm not AI. But once I end the stream and I look at how many people and who was in those streams, which is sometimes is very surprising. It's a little unsettling because to me, I'm still that kid from Middle River, Maryland, that grew up in Cardboard City. That's the neighborhood that we grew up in, and it doesn't exist anymore. But it was just poor housing, and to see what the Lord has been able to do with my life and how far my voice has reached out and touched other people's lives now, it's overwhelming. And I'm just so honored and so thankful that I've been given an opportunity to do this. But I don't want to become bigger than whatever I become this year. That's it. And when I'm done, I'm going to greet everybody and at the end of the year and say good luck with everything I've given you and have fun with it. So that's always really been my aim. In fact, I wanted to stop sooner, but every time I try to stop, a new wave of people, hundreds of thousands of constant emails and phone calls, people looking up my phone number, texting, hey, is this ICT? Can you please just teach me one-on-one? I'll give you $20,000 right now. It's nuts. But I really have to stop. And this year, I'm doing everything I can to pour myself out. And whoever doesn't get it this year, they're just going to have to study what it is I put in the public eye, and they'll have to get it that way.
Well, that'll be a sad day for a lot of people in the community, I know. I would be interested is maybe one last question about just the ICT brand in general. And it was fascinating to me because I very much have not been ever interested with social media to the extent that as I was learning and even through to now, I really just stay in my own lane. And there's so much happening in the trading space and in general that I just don't know about. And through this type of a path, it was a very long time before I was ever introduced to you or came across you. And since I have, having that on my radar and then now just seeing all of those, I guess, like synchronicities of having you on my radar and seeing how many things have popped up since then. I look at it as an outsider, as you have inspired something of a, I would say like a cult-like following of people that would seemingly go to war for you, take a bullet for you. I mean, it's remarkable, actually. Is that even the idea of having like a cult-like following? Is that derogatory at all? Because I don't mean it that way. I mean it with like a wow factor. But how, when you think of how passionate most of your community is, what are your thoughts on that? Is it, what are your thoughts?
Well, you're accurate in both senses of the term. It is very cult-like. I didn't set out to have a band of ready at the moment warriors that literally go and devastate anybody that would say anything negative about me or whatever I've done. I'm glad that it happened at this age, because if it would have happened when I was 20, I would have been reckless with that. My interpretation of what our community is like, imagine, if you will, folks that have gone through their life up to a point where their own family members have counted them out. They've been unsuccessful in everything they've ever tried. They are in impoverished nations. Their degrees they went to school with hasn't been fruitful for them, and they've tried everything, and they're at their wits' end. And then you add on the things that everyone around the world has been contending with for the last 3 years, and I'm not going to say it because you know what we're talking about here. All the things that are problematic for everyone, and everything's expensive, everything's hard to obtain and pay for. And then you got this person that steps out there and says, listen, I don't want anything from you except for you to try very hard to do what it is I'm going to teach you. And when they do that, and they hear me, and I'm talking to them, and I'm trying to encourage them all the time, I absolutely want my students to succeed. I want it many times more than they do. There's no future sales pitch on the other end of it. They see that. And when they finally are able to be successful, and they have done it with their own efforts, they've used what they've studied, and everybody else told them they're wasting their time. And then when they hear and see other people talk bad about what it is that they endured, and now they're finding success with, certain individuals that have had war scars, okay, through life themselves, they want to represent. They want to take and say, you know what, you are not going to say that about what I've just went through and who I learned it from. And I love that, but I'm not encouraging that. And unfortunately, some of them, I mean, I've literally had people say, listen, I will do whatever you tell me to do. I'm like, all I'm asking you to do is learn, bro. just settle down. It's not all that, you're doing too much, right? So yeah, it's passion, yes, but it is viewed many times correctly, though, that it is not healthy. And it's not healthy in the scope of the community, because I'm not trying to be the black sheep. I am in a lot of ways, but I'm trying to just remind everybody that you might trade differently. You might be profitable. You might be doing something completely outside of the things I'm talking about. And if you are, that's wonderful. Like when you were doing your live streaming, I had, I was nervous, and I'm not taking the trades. You're taking them. And I'm putting myself in the position of anyone that does that. I have a great respect for that, because I can't focus. I can't have someone talking to me, asking me questions. And when I'm teaching my sons, they're right next to me. And they're my children, they're my flesh and blood. And I don't even permit them to even ask me anything when I'm doing it, because once my concentration's broken, that's it. So your community is very mild-mannered. They know what you're going to do. They know how you're going to talk to them, and they know what you're going to present. Mine is like a carnival. I'm bringing all kinds of people, and it's a wide array of different types of personalities, and some of them are like yours, and others are like right from the streets, and they are savages, and they're ready to throw down for any reason. And it makes it interesting, yes, but it's a little intimidating. Back to what I was saying, that's the reason why it's getting too big. I can't manage it anymore. And it's has honestly seeped into my personal life. We've had people, really encroaching on our private space and time, and it's not something that anybody should endure, all because they want to compete instead of doing whatever they want to do organically and grow their own company that way.
Let's say that the day comes, maybe the end of this year, potentially you tease us like a lot of famous athletes who are set on retiring, and then the idea of being out of the game is just too much to bear, so they come back. But let's just say there will come a day when you hang up the mouse and you walk away from the screens, from trading, from teaching, from everything. What do you want your, I'll say legacy, but the impact that you've had on the trading space, you could broaden it out to the world. What do you imagine that when your time actually comes and you hang up the mouse, that you want to be remembered for, and you want people to know that this is what the ICT brand brought forward, this is what it was all about?
I don't think there hasn't been a day that's gone by since I started teaching that I asked that question of myself. Like, I don't know how to answer that. Sometimes I think I know the answer, and then when I say it out loud to myself, it doesn't satisfy. Like, I don't know what the actual answer would be that would make me feel satisfied in the scope and reach that really started me doing this. So I'm hoping that the folks that would be so gracious with their time to work with the material I produced, I hope that they would recognize the fact that it took a great deal of time and sacrifice on my part to pour in this much time, because my family actually didn't see me much. And for someone that doesn't have a job, you would think they should see me more often. But I'm always doing something with the community, whether it be a private group setting, publicly, Twitter, here with you, enjoying myself nonetheless. But it's always constantly, I'm always ICT. I'm rarely Michael. So I'm hoping they understand that there was a real man, a man behind all of this. That was a husband, a father. And I've done as much as I could have done to help them. And that's why I get upset when a student will leave and think to themselves, it's scam, it doesn't work. When I have other people all around the world now proving with real money. There's a young man, $250,000 last year, funded accounts, $250,000. I got another guy that wants me to interview him. He's taken over $300,000. That's not minuscule. Like, that's change your life kind of money. And they weren't mentorship students that came to me and paid. Like, they went through like everybody else is going through right now. They're putting the work in. And that's why I ask them all the time, like, what does it feel like? When I ask a student that's finally found profitability and they're making real money, I ask them that question. Can you articulate it in words? What does it feel like for you? Because I can't articulate it in a way where it is satisfying. Like, when you find consistency and you're trading your methodology and you're firing on all cylinders and you know that you're dialed in, try right now. Tell me how that feels for you if I was not a trader, and then understand how that would be satisfying of an explanation to someone that would be a lay audience, someone that's not a trader. Tell me how it would feel for Aaron Corbs to be dialed in, nailing it, following his method, and just walking out of that week profitable, and you know damn well you did well. Tell me, describe it. How's it feel?
I'll tell you, I feel this is a topic that I'll give you what it feels like. And to your point, what it feels like, I don't know if we really have the words, or I don't know if I could communicate it either, because on the surface it is, I'm performing at a good level. I'm staying disciplined. I'm following my rules. I am performing well, and that feels good. That feels, there's a certain level of accomplishment tied to that. There's a certain level of trying to think of the word, but there's a certain level of just feeling accomplished and feeling fulfilled, even at some level. But then beyond that, there's this understanding of the unseen struggles and the hardships and the times in the dirt to get to this moment that nobody sees, nobody knows about. And the actual feeling is so much bigger than what I can describe. And there's no way for anybody else to experience it unless they've had a similar hard journey that they've gone through, they could at least relate to.
Mm-hmm. That very difficulties you just had trying to explain it, I understand it. Everybody else that makes money understands it.
Yeah.
So when people that aren't making money and they see this carnival that follows ICT around and why they're so passionate, they think that's the only way they can explain the feeling they have is by going to war for me. That's why they act the way they do, because they can't articulate any other way. They feel like they have arrived. They're at their peak performance of their life. They're doing something that most people couldn't even imagine doing. This industry is so complex. It's hard. Not only are you trying to beat the industry standards, but you're competing against yourself. You are such a formidable adversary. People don't even realize how hard it is to overcome ourselves in trading. And when you finally get to that point where you master yourself, because you're never mastering the markets, when you master yourself and you finally get yourself in that position where you know exactly why you're doing something, when you're going to do it, how you're going to do it, and defeat ain't even part of the equation. Like, you know that you're going to be successful. Once you finally reach that peak performance level, you're dialed in. There's nothing taking you out of that. No one can convince you that you aren't exactly where you're supposed to be at. So that's the reason why it's hard to articulate. You can't explain to someone. You can't explain to a lamb, to a sheep, what it feels like to finally be a lion. They'll never understand it. And that's why we do this. It's not just the money. We love what we're doing. We love it because it fulfills our life. It gives us every aspect that we've been striving for. Jobs aren't going to do it. Titles in a company ain't going to do it. You carved your own man, your own woman. You're your own person. You've carved that out from due diligence, showing up every day, going through the motions, suffering through the periods where everybody else was already counting you out. And you're like, you know what? You said I wasn't going to do it. Watch how fast I get there now. And that's the mindset. So to me, I think that's, the core essence of why a trader does what they do. It's not the money. We're motivated by the money, but what keeps us doing it? It's that. When we're on, there's nothing better. It's better than any drug. It's better than any relationship. And my own personal life is a testimony to that. I love my wife. I love my children. But this has always fulfilled a role in my life that would never be filled by any of that. And that is an honest, unfortunate truth to me as the person. I feel I am the person I'm supposed to be doing this, more so than the husband that I signed on to be with my wife and the father of my children. And that's a very hard thing for someone to understand. But career traders, that people that have poured themselves into this, it's not the right thing to do. I didn't make the right decision doing those types of things and making trading more important than my family. They suffered because of that. And now, because of me looking back on all that, I can see I didn't make the right decisions. But at the time, it was so fulfilling, I couldn't put it down to divert my attention to other things. And only a trader would understand that. And it's a very complex relationship that we have as traders with the marketplace.
I wildly appreciate you sitting down and just opening up. And I think that it was very nice to just get to know more about your story and to hear more about it. And I imagine that this will be a very great video for people to listen to and kind of see a side of you that I don't know if really is out there much, but I think that it was very nice to hear. Yeah. Before we wrap up to any official extent, do you want to push anybody anywhere specific other than just go to your YouTube channel and check out the series you have there and check out more of what you're about? I know that you're not trying to get any more popular, but just as is there anything on the horizon that you would point people to, or just standard YouTube, Twitter stuff?
If they want to know more about me, they're welcome to come to my YouTube channel, and whatever they want to look for and seek out, it'll be there. But I'm going to be doing live sessions starting February 7th, 2 per week. And I'm going to be basically doing tape reading, which is me. I'm not pushing a button. I'm not trying to coax anybody to push a button and enter a trade behind me. I'm going to be calling the market live, what I see, what is favorable, where I think it's going to go. And that way it helps at least provide, in my opinion, a baseline, what a trader in development should be doing before they ever even do a demo trade. So how can you decipher where price is going to go and build a base of experience to trust why you're even going to implement a demo trade at all? Anyway, So it's a matter of looking at the marketplace, getting a feel for where it's going to go, what it shouldn't do, where should setups be likely to form, where it shouldn't go one step occurs, and then hopefully that gives a baseline to a student that's learning how to read price action, naked, no indicators whatsoever, and that's my goal. Whether I'm successful in it or not this year, remains to be seen, but that's my next endeavor.
Very cool. Okay, so people can check this out on your YouTube channel. It's coming very soon. I'm sure maybe the time this is recorded, or the time this is put out, you'll already be doing it. So that'll be excellent. One more time, just very much thank you for sitting down and for being a part.
You're very welcome, Aaron.
Hey, thanks for watching to the very end. If you enjoyed this episode, there's a good chance you're going to love the other ones. So spend some time on the channel and make sure you show some love on the way out. Now, if you're struggling with your trading and you'd like my help, everything I'm involved with will be linked in the descriptions. Happy trading.